In this lecture, we're going to learn how to shift on the guitar, where we keep fingers attached to the guitar, and we're kind of moving other fingers to get ready for the next note. In the previous lecture, when I was kind of getting you ready for this, I talked about spider walking across the fretboard, so that's kind of the image we want to have in mind. This is really good for developing the flexibility and the strength and the independence of your left-hand fingers, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to do that. Starting at measure 18, you want to make sure that you're keeping your left-hand fingers down for as long as possible when we hand off between all these different voices. So when I do this guy, I'm going to play the C on the third fret, on the third string, 5th fret. I'm going to put my pinky on this A on the 5th fret of the high E string. And then what I want to do is hold that note down, and I make sure the pinky stays down right so when I smush it, my hand close together here, and do the G on the 3rd fret of the high E string to do that little phrase. So I kind of smush my hand together. I talked about this in position playing, where your hand might come kind of smushed together for a moment, so we're not always going to keep a perfect 4-fret position. You hold on to this index finger note, and then after you've played this note, then you can move it to get to the 1st fret. Now we're going to play the E open and set up for the next guy. Same thing here, I'm going to keep my middle finger down until it hands off to the index finger on the 1st fret. To the first beat of measure 21. So that's not too bad at that point. So that whole phrase here, starting at measure 18, we have. And even there, I want to make sure that my pinky stays down until I play this 3rd finger, and that C on the 3rd string, 5th fret, and then high E string open with it. I put my pinky down here. For a moment, I'm smushing it like that, and then it's like after I play this note, then my 1st finger can leave. Then it leaves, and then I'm shifting on the open to this. I'm going to use 1 and 3 there. And that stays down. That way I always have sound going. I always have something going. I'm not breaking off a note. I'm not hearing the end of a note. When I shift to this guy, keep this 2nd finger down. I just left it up there to show you that finger. And from there, it's usually not too bad. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. We're going to be referring back to this passage a lot because it's one of the trickier parts. The same thing at the parallel passage, starting at measure 26, where the notes are a little bit staggered. It's still totally the same idea. The same left-hand fingering applies in that case. So now in the previous few lectures, we've talked about some different things that have to do with shifting. So we just talked about spider walking on the guitar, keeping a finger attached to the guitar while other fingers are moving around and setting up for the next notes. We've talked about shifting on an open note, and we've talked about shifting where you're keeping a steady stream of 8th notes going. So that's kind of like a section on shifting that we've just talked about. Unfortunately, most guitar music doesn't just stay in one position on the guitar and just play in that little space. We have to move around the fretboard. So this will give you some ideas and some strategies to be able to do that. In the next kind of section of this section, we're going to talk about slurs. We're going to talk about going from one note cleanly and clearly to the next note. So once you feel like you've really solid on all the aspects to do with shifting, let's go ahead and look at slurs in the next lecture.